And there we go. We're live. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. Wow, time is flying. The
Oh my.
21st of January already. The amazing thing, Jose, is I'll kind of show that I'm an old guy here a little bit, right? So, my wife makes fun of me because for a lot of things, well, not all of them, right? So some of them are billed to my credit card or whatever, but some of my bills I still pay with checks. And she's like,
Oh my goodness.
like, what are you doing? You're like that old lady in the grocery store line filling out their. I'm like, well, eventually you have to write a check, right? If it's to the credit card company or however you got it all set up, you're still writing a check eventually. But
Yes.
she makes fun of me. But the reason I bring up that story is that I haven't had any problems writing 2022. I think it's just because I was so happy to get rid of 2021, just like everybody else. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Bryan Armentrout with the Food Leadership Group, the Food Safety Foundation, with my good friend Jose Sabal from Sabal Food Safety Consulting. And every Friday we do something that's really cool, and I always look forward to this. Is we do a food safety chat, and we go live on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, and we talk about a food safety topic. And we'll generally publish that topic with my assistant Renee, who's on. Thank you for joining us, Renee. And we will select the topic for a week, and then Jose and I'll get together and do a little show prep, and then we'll get ready for this conversation. And really, it's a conversation. So if you're new to this, this is not a PowerPoint presentation, going through on a particular, boring, right? This is meant to be interactive. This is your opportunity to talk with food industry experts, right? We've been doing this a long time, and get our take on how to do things in your operations to make it better. Because as we often say on this show, food safety is not a point of competition, guys. It's something that we're all in together. And what we do, if you work in quality assurance and food safety and things like this, we have a loyalty beyond a particular company. Sure, we do things for our company and we make sure that things go well, and that's a primary function for us. But we're also working for the industry.
Yeah.
So if you work for an ice cream company, you're working for an ice cream company, but you're working for the ice cream industry as well, because everyone is judged the same, right? So not to pick on a particular industry, but right. So the prepackaged, lettuce companies right now are going through a lot of pain, right? There's been a lot of recalls and issues in the minds of the consumer, right? They lump all of those together, right? So you could have world-class operations in that area, but if you're being judged by the most problems in your area, it's going to reflect on you. So you need to think in that big picture. So one of the things we like to do too, and this is always fun and really amazing, guys, as you kind of check in here, is the variety of people around the world who come and check out this food safety chat. So it's really cool. I'm in Loveland, Colorado, not the ski resort, which I'm sure a lot of people will be. There's some nice snow coming to the mountains. They've been having a good year up there with the ski season. Loveland, Colorado, there's the city of Loveland, which is by Fort Collins, which is about an hour or so north of the Denver metropolitan area. And it's cold, and there's some more snow on the way this afternoon. Of course, you're in wonderful, warm Florida.
Oh yeah. and define warm, because since 2 days ago, days are not that cool as the other days. But last evening, most likely, late afternoon, evening, we have one of these storms, rain. Oh my goodness, Bryan, water reached half of my driveway. It was up half of my driveway already, because the storm drains, somehow they got blocked with all of the leaves of the trees around.
That's
so
scary.
in the middle of that, power went out for a few minutes. But then we went out, a few neighbors and myself, with a rake and something moving the to make sure the water goes out.
A little crisis management, right? So
Yeah.
home continuity processes. So we're getting some people checking in here. We love it, guys. Thank you, Duncan. Good to see you. Martin's here joining us again. Thanks, Martin. I'm sure you're very comfortable in Phoenix. Jeanette's joining us again from San Diego. Good to see you as well. And of course, Tammy down in Austin. So good to see you as well. We love this because, as you'll see, if you're new to this chat, it's kind of like a little family, right? We get together on Friday mornings and we talk about these topics and learn from each other, which is what food safety is about.
And we have fun.
and we have fun, right? This is a lot of fun. And what's cool about it too is it's sponsored, and I'm getting better at this, Jose.
There
Right,
you
so
go.
EAS Consulting Group is a sponsor of this food safety chat. They're a consulting company based in Washington, D.C., and they have consultants all over North America. And it's really cool because what they do is they bring in consultants to work with. So people like me who have over 20 years of experience in different specialty areas. So dietary supplements, medical device, food, you name it. And there's over 100 consultants that work with EAS in the food space with an average of over 20 years of experience. And so you can find somebody really, really quickly who can help you. With Jose and his business with Sabal Consulting, Jose does a lot of teaching of courses. And so PCQI and these type of things. And if you get a chance to take a course with Jose, you need to do it, because I mean, this guy is one of the best trainers out there. You will learn a ton. So he's got his email on here. So if you're thinking about that, please reach out to Jose and sign up for one of his courses. Amazing. So at the end as
Thank
well.
you.
Oh, you're very welcome. You deserve it. And at the very end of the talk here today as well, too, EAS has a special offer for people who watch this live stream. So you can get a discount on training, 15%. And I'll give the code and that information at the end. So if I forget that, Jose, please remind me, and I'll put that up.
Okay.
Good morning, Catherine. Nice to see you as well. So one of the things that I always want to do, right, is I always want to dive into our topic right away because I'm always biting at the chomp. But one of the things, and Jill will know this as well, who just joined, is we like to have a ceremonial drink.
I was waiting
together. Yep. You keep me honest. I like that. So please join us, everyone.
My tea is not as hot as I like it, but it's fine.
Well, I saw that these Ember mugs, right? And so this is just me loving an awesome product, right? Is these mugs are heated, right? It's got a little USB, a little charger on the base and things like that. You can get these at Costco now, Jose. You can buy the Ember mugs at Costco.
So my daughter gave me this one in December, and my wife gave me a little warmer for the cup. The thing is that I discovered that the warmer is wonderful, but when I have my desktop, my desk twisted in a way that I have my green screen on the back and everything is working, the wire is not long enough to reach the outlet.
Oh, bummer. Well, and then plus, if you try and drill, you end up with the risk of catching the cord too, right? Which is major.
Yeah, I just need to look for an extension cord, and that's it.
Exactly. So today's topic. So the way this works, a little behind the scenes information here, is when I bring a guest on like this on a Friday, and what we'll do is we'll schedule early in the week a prep call. And we'll get together and we'll decide on a topic, what's going out there in the industry, and what's something that we haven't talked about, and some more information that we can bring our audience. And so for this week, we decided on something that's really tied in with a lot of different things that are going on, right? Which is management commitments and management review, right? The very first element, 2.1 under SQF. And as we are all very, very aware, there's a lot of interest and a lot of activity going around food safety culture.
A lot, Bryan. Yes. And you know what? Like we mentioned, I started looking for definition of senior management. Okay. After 9 years of auditing, many of these GFSI standards, I mean, people is confused. People don't fully understand who is senior management. And actually, I found a source from BRC, which at the end, BRC, SQF, FSSC, IFS, and so on, all of them are GFSI. So the basics are about the same, I'm going to say. There is a definition for senior management that says those with a strategic, high-level operational responsibility for the company and the capability to authorize financial and human resources necessary for the implementation of the standard, whatever that is. Okay? And there is another definition for senior site management. Okay. And that is individuals at the highest level of on-site responsibility for the business operation and implementation and improvement of the food safety and quality management system.
Mm.
Highest level. So the PCQI, the SQF practitioner, the senior vice president of production, you call it, any person that is not at the top of the organizational chart in any specific site or at the top of the board, which could be more than one people, but it's the board of a corporation, is not senior management.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think the standards, right, because this has been a point of confusion for a long time. And I think the standards and, Leanne and the team over at SQF have been spending a lot of time trying to figure this out. Okay, how do we communicate this through the standard and give people an idea of what they're doing? Because again, GFSI is a worldwide standard, right? So trying to get a common frame for everyone can be really, really difficult. So one of the things, guys, that we like here as well, too, is in the comments, right? Put your questions and let us know as we're going through these topics how you do things in your company. That's a big help for other people to kind of get ideas around that. I used to, for about 6 years, Jose, I was on the SQF Technical Advisory Council as an industry representative when I ran QA at different companies. And this section that we're talking about today, management review and commitment, year in, year out, when we would do the analysis of the standard, was the least cited thing.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this, Bryan. If industry is not clear of first the definition of senior management and then the specific responsibilities for senior management that are defined in these standards, well, I'm going to say that as an average person, the auditors are going to have about the same knowledge as anyone that is setting up one of these systems in industry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that means at the same time, and now I'm going to get into the culture, that because of a cultural thing, senior management is going to say, well, I'm going to hire a lot of people to take care of these. I'm just going to put the money and do the things to get more money. But they just don't have no clue about what is a food safety system.
Right. Right. And you see this a lot of times in organizations, not necessarily as much at the plants because you need very specific knowledge to run a plant, but definitely at corporate, you have people who come into the industry who have never worked in food before.
Yes.
Right. And a lot of times when you look at who becomes CEO, right? So now we're talking senior management, right? Not site management, is they come from automotive or what have you. And a lot of times they come up through finance or sales or marketing or maybe operations,
Yes.
but generally not. It's more the business side activities, the corporate things. And there needs to be some education that takes place on that side.
And what about those that are coming from environmental health and safety and they're experts in OSHA and they think, but because safety is part of the title, oh, that includes food safety. Yeah. No, my friend, that is not going to happen.
Right. That's a good point, right? And those are two very, very different skill sets.
Totally different.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the OSHA side of things, enough to be dangerous and have a conversation, but I do not know enough to manage that, and I'm smart enough to know that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to do that. So Daniel had a comment here. I consider my senior management team my change influencers.
Okay.
Like
and now that you're using the word influencers, Daniel, yeah, that could be eventually applied to the food safety culture, to the guiding coalition and the head of each of the teams, and then you have your influencer. Great. I believe that is a good way to approach it.
Yeah, and definitely. I like the way Daniel's thinking about this, because you need to plan this out, right, of how you want to do this. Because if let's say you're working for a company with multiple plants and you're a quality manager and you're responsible for the food safety systems and you're the PCQI and the practitioner, right? This all falls on you, and you're new to this operation. You're trying to figure out how to do this. This all needs to integrate in, right? If you try and say, okay, well, I'm the quality manager and here's what the requirements are, and I'm just going to set up my own stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. That's not good, because part of this, right, is you have tactics of how you're going to be doing this, but also the overall strategy, right? The whole point of this, and you mentioned it, Jose, is to help build that culture within a
Yes.
company.
Yep.
And part of this is this realization, and a lot of times I think quality people are not very good at this, right? We're not very good. And Jill Stuber, who's on our chat here, talks about this a lot, is we focus too much on the technical side of things, right? Here's what a standard says. Here's how you do a test. Here's a written procedure, blah, 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 right? And we don't think about the people, the management side of things. And that's as equal, if not more important, right? Because if you're a quality manager and you're designing this and you're leading this, you're impacting all kinds of other people as well. And so you need to be a bit of a diplomat, right? And make sure that you're teaching and training and helping people,
Yes.
other people understand. So let's say, for example, you're at the plant and the plant does procurement activities and you're doing supplier reviews and these type of things. You need to work with that procurement team so that they understand up front what food safety is. And
Yes.
what we're talking about here today around building these programs out, you need to have that alignment, because if you have these people in your site meetings and you're explaining these things and they're just kind of sitting back like this or doing this on their phone while you're talking, they're not engaged and they don't understand their role.
Yes. Actually, look at this, Bryan. Just connecting these topics. I was able to read from this document the definition of senior management or senior site management. They are responsible for providing money and human resources for the implementation of the class. Okay, so look at this. One of the techniques that you use in order to implement your food safety culture is rewarding people.
Yes.
For rewarding people, you need money.
Mhm.
Can you say, "Oh, I'm going to give these guys 25 gift card if they do this or this or that"? No, unless you pay for that from your own pocket, it's not going to happen.
Right. And part of this too, right, is what's managed gets measured, right? So how are you then building this into those responsibilities? Because if you just lay it, right, this gets into responsibility and authority, and we'll talk about this more too, is if you lay all this responsibility on the shoulders of the QA manager, but he doesn't have authority or she doesn't have the ability to implement, you're dead.
Yep.
You're dead.
It's not going to work.
Yep. Let's see. So Daniel's got some good comments here as well too. A great book to see if you are a change influencer or influencer architect means you are changing the food safety system through 4 groups: documentation, training, auditing, and CI. Yeah, I mean, that's plan, do, check, act, right? We'll talk about that a little bit too.
Yep.
Tammy always has great comments here. Let's see. Exactly. Break it down. Enterprise business operations all have a different perspective on the same company and ideas about the DNA. Absolutely. You can't change that culture and processes without recognizing all levels.
Oh, yes.
100%.
100%.
Right. So the point here, right, is you just can't go charging into this without designing this around and integrating this into the business. You need to think about all of these different activities, right? And so what you're doing at your plant, if you're at that plant, and how this relates to corporate as well.
Yes.
A good way to think about this, here's a quick tip for everybody, is quality data is in 2 buckets, right? Forward-looking and backwards-looking. So corrective and preventive, right, is a good way to think about it. So when I ran quality of the company, right, I had a corporate quality report. And that corporate quality report was built with the information from the plants, right? So the plants would do their reports, send me their reports. I would create the corporate report. And then I would go and meet with senior management to explain the quality report. I just didn't send it to them, right?
Yes.
We had a monthly meeting where I would sit down with them because there was always questions, right? And there was always things that they needed to know. But the important piece of this, and the reason I'm bringing this up, Jose, is that there should have been no surprises in that meeting.
I agree.
In that meeting should already know that, let's say, complaints are up, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go into that meeting and you say, yep, here's our graph of complaints per million units, and we're about double where we were the prior month, right? If senior management goes, whoa, what, wait, what, right? And they don't understand, you have failed in that role, right?
Yep.
The quality report is backwards looking. You're reporting on what's already happened, and that's good to know, but it's already happened, right? The other side of that is the preventive, and this is where people struggle, right, is being able to forecast and look at information and say, okay, here's things that are going in a direction I don't like. Let's take action to bring that back down, right? So think of your data and your information in those two buckets is going to be really, really helpful.
Yeah, 100% with you all the time. And again, look at this. When I was getting ready to prepare this culture, food safety culture class for this group of people in Spain.
Mhm.
I mean, I read a lot of different documents, and it kind of it got in my mind. There was a document, a paper that I was reading, explaining that your organizational structure for the effective development and implementation of your food safety management system is not the structure of your culture. Because the structure of your culture starts with those that Daniel was talking about, the influencers.
Yeah.
Those that are going to be the team leaders, those that can influence others in doing the right things in their own departments, within the company, and so on.
Yeah.
So organizational chart and the titles that people hold within the company have nothing to do with the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
I have nothing to add. That was perfectly said.
Yeah.
So Martin has a good comment here. So yeah, Daniel, keep it up here in the comments. And I love the interaction, right? So between Jill and Daniel, that's what we're here for, right? Keep it going. So Martin says here, auditors used to justify upper management commitment to quality and food safety by saying, well, I can see upper management commitment because they invest money in the audit. I'm performing on your system and facility today.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of.
Good point, Martin.
And we have gone a long way. Still, some upper managements are just committing the money and not their own time, participation, and commitment to quality systems in the culture. Yep, exactly. So, I mean, part of this, right, is within this, auditors are always looking for something that's a checkbox, right? So they'll go to those things quickly. And so one of the first things under the standard that auditors like to look for, right, and they'll kind of get you with a quick little minor on this, is the policy statement, right? So under 2.1, under SQF, you have to have a policy and commitment statement, and it's got to be signed by senior manager. Again, back to your comments, Jose, who's senior management, right? It should be site management, right? If you want to have a corporate one signed by the CEO, great. But you also need to show it at the plant level so people can see, right? If you're working in a plant, right, and you're an operations person and you're working on a line and things like this, your plant team is the people you see every day, right? Yeah. You may see the CEO every 6 months or a year when he's coming through for a tour or there's a big customer there or something like that. But odds are you don't even know who that person is, right? And he's walking through and you're like, well, who is that? Well, that's our CEO. Oh, okay. Well, that was nice. Right. And off they go. So you need to set that up properly as well. Yeah. So with that policy statement, right, is like, that's just basic, right? And so at SQF in their standard, right, I'm kind of referring to the SQF standard here, but it applies to everything as well, is that they're just setting the basics, right, of, okay, you got to be committed. You have to show resources. And to Martin's point, just saying that, hey, we paid for you to come for an audit, no, that's not enough, right?
No, it's not enough.
And so part of that is painting a picture for the auditor and really kind of explaining that. And to Martin's point then too, is talking about the budget is not a bad thing either.
Oh, no, not at all.
And saying, yes, here within our systems, let me explain to you, Mr. Auditor, how we allocate money for quality programs and training and continuous improvement and how we're looking at building new things and these type, explain all those things to the auditor.
Yep.
Because part of this, right, is if you're an auditor, right, you're looking at 2.1 in two main areas, right? You're like, okay, what are the brick and mortar type things that I can look at to demonstrate a commitment? And then the other side is the abstract side, all these people things that we're talking about. And as we've talked about on past live streams, Jose, it's kind of like pretty artwork. I don't know why I like it, but I know it when I see it type response, right? And auditors, and there's a lot of individuality around this, will use past experiences and ways of looking at things when they're looking at commitment, right? So for example, if I'm the auditor coming into a facility, let's say it's a big plant, right? There's like 600 people working there. There's a large management team. It's with a multi-million-dollar budget, right? Big plant making lots of product. And if we then have the opening meeting for the SQF audit, and the only person who bothers to show up is the QA manager, that's telling me something.
Oh, yes. Right. That is telling you a lot, not something, a lot.
Yeah. And if the closeout meeting, if the only person who shows up is the quality manager and the plant manager sticks her head in the door and says, "What's my score?" That's telling me
your score and commitment is not that good.
Right. You're not doing very well there, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, there was something that was very interesting here under that policy statement, though, that people need to be aware of is one of the things, and because GFSIs are international standards, is language, right? It doesn't do any good to have explanations of things in languages that people don't understand. So if that's an issue in your company, you need to be thinking about this under this section. So if your staff all speak Spanish and everything is written in English,
how you have a big problem. I can talk about that a lot.
Right. How are you dealing with that? And it's a difficult situation. I went to a presentation a few years ago with a large company in Canada, who was showing how they were meeting this requirement. And oh my goodness, Jose, the resources and effort this company put into this was amazing.
Yeah.
And the more they did, the more they had to do. And I was just like, wow, okay. So this was kind of on the extreme of the other side for language. So they went through and had a blue ribbon committee in their company, and they were giving a presentation on this. And as they got into this, they figured out that a lot of their production facilities had these large populations of individuals, immigrants from other countries. So Vietnamese and Indians and all these type of things. And they started creating documentation for these different groups. And then when they started doing that, they found out that, so for example, in India, there was other dialects. So it was languages within languages.
Yes.
And one group didn't understand the other one.
Yeah.
And so the complexity just multiplied. And imagine the difficulty, right? Let's say that you're responsible for the quality system and you need to update a document, something important like GMPs. Man, that then becomes a Herculean effort. Right. So if you have, let's say something crazy, 10 different languages, and you need to figure out how to communicate that information 10 different ways, it's like having 10 whole different systems.
It's a huge task.
Yes.
Yes. So now look at this, Bryan, because we just dig deep in one specific branch of the tree. But let me go back because I want to, and you know me, I would like to put this into perspective with the word systems. Okay. So someone, senior management, a company with a board of people deciding to get into the food business, or one or two persons that decided to create a company to make food. That's how you start a food business.
Right.
They are the ones that have the resources. They are the ones that have the ideas. They are the ones that have, I want this product to be manufactured, period. And that's it. Now, they cannot do whatever they wish because this is the food industry. And anyone that decides to go into the food industry must follow certain very specific regulation. In the best case scenario, that's a minimum requirement. And then on top of that, the only way that you can prove to your customers that you're doing a good job is by getting certified. Okay, so now you have the legal requirements and the legal and regulatory requirements and the requirements of that standard or those standards that you are following that are voluntary. So let's take the approach from systems. What systems is saying? Well, that you need to be consistent on whatever you do. And the goal of any food safety system, if I just grab a generic approach to this, which is going to fit perfectly in any country of the world, we need to do whatever it takes to prevent the adulteration and misbranding of food products. Okay? And I'm going to use, yes, the FDA language, but you know what? It doesn't matter because it's going to be the same in any country. Now look at this. Fine, if I need to achieve consistency on that, And the owner is the one that says, I want to manufacture this product in this facility with this equipment, with these people.
Mhm.
Okay. If the owner do not understand systems, the owner is going to be in big trouble. Okay. And this is the reason why. Yes, the owner, senior management, is the one that is going to define the food safety policy, the culture of the company, commitment to resources, and not only financial, also people, and setting up the people, the system properly. And if you set up that system properly from the top, if senior site management understands what is a system and understand what is consistency, and the program is developed in a way that is consistent, you are not going to have deviations from the intention of the system, which is what? Prevention of adulteration and misbranding. What that means? Oh, this owner is going to be investing the necessary money. I don't know what that means. The necessary money to prevent the adulteration and misbranding, which means what? You will never have a recall, in quotes.
Mhm. Right.
In quotes. If you will never have a recall because everything works perfectly, which is an utopia because we know it, but again, at least we're going to minimize as much as possible any deviation in the process. You are guaranteeing the scope and the reason why that owner, why that person invested the money, because now they're going to have the return on investment because they don't need to waste money in reworking, in re-cleaning, and redoing things because the system is working properly.
Right. And this demonstrates, right, again, so if you're involved with this system, right, and you're a champion for food safety in your company, creating the documents is just part of the challenge, right? The other piece is being an advocate, right? So the example I use is you need to be a tour guide, right? In every production facility, there's a person who gives the tours.
Yes.
And that person is amazing at doing that, right? Because it's not because they explain the equipment and say, all right, this is a homogenizer, this is a 50,000 gallon tank, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever, right? A successful tour guide gives the story. It's like, oh, welcome, Jose, to my plant. I'm Bryan. I'm the quality manager. I'm going to give you a tour of this wonderful facility. Now, what you're going to notice, because this is a dairy plant, we're going to be going backwards through the operation. Why? Because we get trucks from farms and our wonderful suppliers. And we don't want what's in that area getting into the rest of the plant. So we're going to start at the warehouse and go backwards through the process and end with receiving. Yes. And along the way, I'm going to tell you the story and the history and the people and all these type of things, right? And by the time that person leaves and walks back out to their car, they're going, wow, that's a good company. They care.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. And you know why, Bryan? Because they touch the emotional part of the person. They touch a heart.
Right. And it's the same with your quality systems, right?
Yes.
Is food safety is assumed. You have to make sure that people don't take it for granted because problems happen all the time because senior leadership is focused on other things. You need to be an advocate and give them a tour of food safety and say, here's why we do these things and here's how this works. And this is why quality wants to be involved with procurement and partner with them early to make sure we aren't going down the wrong path and wasting time and money.
Yes.
Time and money, senior management understand time and money.
Yes.
Link these things.
Yep. That is exactly the connection between money and food safety, the system, making sure that it's consistent.
Right. And I think that's why in this section, management responsibility and all the things that we're talking about today, people struggle with. Yeah. Because it's abstract. Right.
It is.
And that's why everybody's looking at food safety culture and how do you try and do these things and why the standards are working so hard to create language that conveys what we're talking about.
Yeah. And recently also I was hearing some podcast and reading some information about emotional intelligence. So it's not about IQ, it's about EQ.
Yes.
And then, okay, so how do you touch the emotions of people? How do you motivate people? By emotions.
Yes.
Not by explaining technical things.
Well, and the thing is too, is we're social animals. And we pick up cues from each other all the time, right? When we first meet somebody, we already have an impression of them.
Yes.
And we don't know. We can't see in most cases what we're projecting. Here's a quick example, right? Is I used to have a habit. I became aware of this, and so I worked very hard to change this. So I would be in my office working, and my desk would be facing the front door, Jose. And if I was working on something that was I was really concentrating on something, right? I would have a look on my face like this. Right? As I was looking at that computer screen.
Yes, you were
And I'm just
concentrated.
thinking, I'm working, I'm like, right, working. And people said that they would come, and I asked for this feedback. When people would say, well, I come to your office sometimes and you're angry. I'm like, what? I'm angry. What? Well, you have this face, right? What is it? Resting bitch face, right? I'm like this.
That is a perception.
Right. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. Right. So there was probably people that came to my office to ask me something and started walking toward the door, and turned the corner and saw me and went, whoa, okay, I'll ask him later. And I never knew.
Good point.
Good point. Like that, right. So the people side is super, super important.
Yes.
So within management review, right, there's the little things, and this is probably 10% of what we're talking about here, is specific things that the auditor can check. All right, he can go out and see if the management policy is hanging, that it's signed. Okay, great. That little requirement's been taken care of. The establishment and documentation and communication of the relevant staff for food safety objectives and measures, right? How are you doing those things? Yep. Resources, what we're talking about here too. Another good one is visitors, right? When visitors show up, what is the process you work visitors through? Do they just go to the front office and talk to the receptionist and say, hi, I'm Bryan, I'm here to see Jose, right? And then you come up after 10 minutes, or like, oh, hey, yeah, let's put you in the conference room over here, and then we'll dive into our documents. Right? Not a good impression, right?
Yeah.
It should be, right? When you get there, there's an entire process you work through, right? And this is people going in the front door and the back door, right? Contractors. Oh, don't get me started on contractors. Right? Hi, Bryan. Welcome to our plant. My name is Robin. I'm the receptionist up front here. What we do for every visitor is we want to make sure that you're safe and that you understand the rules, because we're making food for people, for children and granddaughters and all these type of things. So you need to understand the environment you're in. We have a presentation from our CEO on good manufacturing practices, and we're going to walk you through that. And if you have any questions, make sure that you understand. Oh, and by the way, everybody in our facility is fully authorized, if you are doing something that is a risk to product, to ask you to stop. If you do not stop, you will be asked to leave. Are there any questions? Right?
Something like that.
Yeah, people are like, whoa, okay, these guys are serious. They know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah, and then you know what? And this is a kind of a very mean comment. But then those 2 times that the corporate CEO visits the company, because it's a company, the guy walks inside the processing facility without hand washing, without a call, without hairnet. Really, where is the commitment?
That undercuts everything. Everything. Yes. Right?
Yes.
So how you're doing that? Your budget, and under section 2 for management review, staff are informed and held accountable for their food safety and regulatory responsibilities.
Okay, so look at this. Just to interrupt you for a second, Bryan. One of the requirements in the GFSI paper document is to set up a communication system between all the different levels of the company. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I like what SQF is saying here, because they're saying it's everybody, right? Everybody is responsible and accountable, right? One of my pet peeves in companies where I used to work for is if we had an issue, right? So something's on hold or whatever, and the management would say, oh, we have a quality issue. And I'm like, no, we don't. We have a production issue. I didn't make it, right? A lot of times, and if you see this in companies, right, this is another thing that auditors are looking for, right, is that hot potato, I call it, right? So there's a problem, and they got the hot potato, and they throw it to QA, and they say, fix it. Yeah. And then they walk away, right? No, that's not accountability, right? Yeah. And if you're the quality manager and you take that on yourself, you're making a big mistake, right? It needs to be team, and that team then needs to push that down, and what they're saying in this section, to the staff.
Yes. And actually, to support what you just mentioned, in effective implementation of systems for the production of food, production is supposed to develop their own procedures on how they are going to be managing the equipment, the people, the whatever are the characteristics that, yes, those are defined, but food safety, food quality. But production has their own responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And if it's not documented, it doesn't happen. So
Yes.
you need to look at, and this is under 2.9 training. Okay, here are all the different positions in the company, right? Here's the job descriptions for the managers. Here's the job descriptions for the operators, what have you. Every one of those that touches food safety needs to have it written into their job descriptions that they're evaluated on food safety.
Yes.
And the more responsibility you have for those, the more it needs to be written in there. So, for example, within FSMA, and there's a lot of confusion around this sometimes, right? Of course, we talk about the PCQIs all the time, but also qualified individuals.
Yep.
So if I'm the pasteurizer operator and I am controlling the preventive control for microbiological hazards, I'm a qualified individual.
Yes. Oh, and now that you're touching that topic, so let me build on that. In order for someone, and this is, this may be exposed to, many different interpretations, but I'm going to throw it out the way that I'm using it. In order for someone to be qualified, is not just to make sure that that person is capable, which is exactly the way that GFSI is asking the standard owners. And if you go to the SQF or the GFSI benchmarking standards, you're going to see the definition of capable, which is someone that has the knowledge and the skills to perform an activity. That is capability. Okay. Right. So fine. Is that a person that is qualified? No. Why? Because we are lacking of the attitude. We're lacking commitment. We're lacking the emotions, which is exactly the culture, in order to make sure that that person that could be very knowledgeable, that could be very skillful, that may have a lot of experience, that person may not have the right attitude. And just because of that, the process is not going to work properly. Yeah. You will have a deviation.
Good point. And this overlays with something that's being kind of interwoven with what we're talking about. And that's another key word here is authority. Right? Oh, yeah. So if I'm the pasteurizer operator and I'm a qualified individual and I understand what my job is, but I also understand how I impact food safety, right? That's qualified individual.
Yes.
If I don't have the authority to act on that knowledge, it's worthless, right? So
you're done.
If as the pasteurizer operator, I recognize a unsafe food act. So let's say the pasteurizer is supposed to go into divert because it's not warm enough. And it doesn't. I need to be able to hit a button and shut that down.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. Yes. Actually, look at this, Bryan. If you read with enough detail the GFSI position paper for the culture, and you start dissecting and trying to work with those different elements, those different components, that dimensions is the way the name that they use. A section of the document says that we need to empower people. How do you empower people? I'm going to tell you very easily. Tell each and every single person what is the criteria that defines what is okay and what is not okay for their own specific activities.
Yes.
If you say, Bryan, you cannot cover your mouth, and I see you like this, oh my goodness, that's a deviation, period. Yeah. So if I'm telling you that, as soon as you see someone else covering their mouth, Bryan can say, hey guys, you cannot cover your mouth. And I'm empowering you to make that decision because you already know what is safe and what is not.
Yep. And Daniel makes a good point here too, right? Money's the language that business priorities are expressed in, right? So you build out your food safety requirements, you build it into the job descriptions, and you tie it, depending on their level, to their review performance, which means their raise, and their bonus.
Oh my, okay. Now look at one thing. I love the idea, Bryan, but we need to be very careful with the things that we do. And this is the explanation, okay? The biggest problem that we have in a food factory for intentional adulteration Okay, and I'm going to call now not food fraud, but food defense,
Okay.
is to make any of the employees disgruntled.
Yes.
That is the biggest concern for food defense.
Hmm.
Now, some of the things that could be done in a company, that is a lecture for this person, and we are going to, call this person and write him down, and then, my goodness, don't do that because you're making that person mad, and now that person may do something that is going to cause a deviation in your system.
Hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
No. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, so part of this, right, is empowerment. And I think, right, your story illustrates where companies kind of struggle with this, right? Is okay, everybody in the plant is empowered to enforce GMPs. Great. Here's how we wear our hairnets, right, over our ears and covering our hair, right, and all these type of things. There's always people who try and challenge that, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to wear my hairnet up as high as I can. I'm bald. I don't need a hairnet. We've heard
Yeah,
about.
right.
And let's say somebody's on the floor and is not wearing their hairnet correctly. A lot of employees, right, they don't want to go up to the other person and be like, "Hey, Jose, put your hairnet on right, yeah, right," and then you end up with a fight, right?
They don't care.
The way I handle that is through the supervisors, right, and that's how it should be done as well. So, for example, and I was bad at this, right? So I would come in, the VP of QA from corporate, and I would visit a plant, and I would see somebody not wearing their hairnet correctly. And I would come up to that person and I'd be like, "Hey, Jose, you're not wearing your hairnet right. Cover your ears, right?" And you go,
Yeah.
and you put the hairnet down, and I'd walk away. And then you turn to your buddy and say, "Who was that?" Now, that's Bryan. He's the VP of QA from corporate. He comes here every few months. Don't worry about him. Right?
Yeah.
And
exactly right.
right. So I changed, right? That's ineffective. So I changed and realized where the real authority is. And that's on the floor. It's the supervisor, right? If you're my supervisor, Jose, you control my life, right? You're telling me when to come to work. You're telling me what to do. You're giving my evaluations, right? You're my boss.
Yes.
So what I would do, and this is the tactic I changed on this, right? Is if I saw somebody who was doing something like that example, the hairnet wasn't quite right. I would come to you, and let's say now that you're the supervisor, I'd be like, "Jose, are you responsible for this area?" Yes. This is my operation in this area here. These 20 people in here report into me. This is my team. Awesome. You're doing a great job. But I have a question. How do people wear hairnets? Oh, well, we put them on and then it goes over the ears and these type of things. Really? That's great. That's absolutely perfect. Can you please explain to me why that person over there isn't doing that? And then their eyes go, right?
Yeah, because that person is under his or her supervision.
Right. And then I walk away. And now a very different conversation takes place, right? The supervisor comes up to that person and says, "Bill, that was the VP of QA. And he just pulled me aside and called me out and embarrassed me because you're not wearing your hairnet correctly. You know how to do that. I know you know how to do that. Don't do that again."
Yeah.
Because, right, like De Niro in, it's like, "Yeah, I'm watching you, buddy." Right? And that supervisor is the person who is there managing that team. That's
Yes.
the right person to enforce.
Yes.
Right? So don't expect your team members. And the whole point of this long story is don't expect your team members to enforce that, right? To your point, Jose, you're just going to be creating conflict. So understand the right mechanism to do what we're talking about.
Yes. And actually, I'm working on the food safety culture of a company. And through monthly, visits for 1 day each and every single month. And one of the things that I'm doing, which, of course, with the approval of senior management of that company, is that I'm looking for ways to people calling themselves when something is going on, but not in a bad way. And the way that I, realize that this can be done is, guys, you are a team.
Yeah.
Any failure of any of you is going to be a failure of the team. Do you want your team to fail? No. So you need to help yourselves.
Right.
How? Well, if I'm putting on my hairnet and I cannot see myself because there is no mirror, what is the best mirror? Your friends and your colleagues and all the others.
Yes,
if they are telling you, that that there is a problem that you need to adjust, take it as a good thing because
Yeah.
you're helping your team.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, this is working great.
It builds trust. It builds trust.
Yes.
Absolutely. Duncan has a good comment here. Be careful what you measure. Be careful what you measure. So his point is, let's say that you build in a KPI in that plant that says, we'll deduct from your bonuses based on product on hold. Now you've built in an incentive to not have product on hold.
Yep.
Everybody in that plant is going to work to make sure that you don't put product on hold. Even if it should be.
Okay, so to Duncan's point, which I agree 100%. Oh, we have an incentive. The owner of the company, or the owner of a milk company, Bryan, this goes to you. The owner of a milk company is going to tell the production manager, hey guys, I don't know how, but we need to increase production. Well, boss, but you know that we have a limited amount of milk coming in because of the suppliers, and the equipment is only capable to do this amount. And the boss says, I don't care how you do this. That's your problem.
Right.
But I'm going to give you a very good bonus if you achieve that. Oh my goodness, you are putting me in a condition where, you know what? I'm going to start opening the water. I'm going to dilute the milk in order to make more money. That's how I'm going to make a lot of volume.
Or it's like, okay, I'm going to cut my 8-hour sanitation to 4 hours.
Great. That's another way to make more money.
Right. And then the things that should be clean don't get clean because they don't have time, and the problem builds and builds and builds and then blows up. Be careful.
And actually, Austin just make a great comment. What gets rewarded gets done, for better or worse, but yes, gets done.
Absolutely. So, wow, we're already at 50 minutes here, Jose. So let's bring this back up.
Yep.
So here's something very interesting for this conversation today, guys, is tons of notes from the standard. We didn't talk about these line by line, did we?
Nope.
We talked about concepts.
Yes.
Right? This needs to be the whole thing with 2.1 is you need to take these ideas of how to create this culture and build that, right? There's a few check the box requirements in here, right? So you need you want the culture to look, and then build 2.1 to mirror what you've done, not the other way around.
Yes. And Bryan, I will say that the most important thing here is that since I don't know to say invention or creation or finding out what is a system, but since the creation of systems, the person that is most responsible for that system is whomever is the owner of that thing.
Yes.
If things don't start there, it is most likely that it's not going to work.
Yep, I agree. So ton of territory there, and amazing conversation. Thank you, everybody. This is what we love, and this is why we do this. So thank you, everyone, for participating. As promised, let me see if I can get this to work here. Hey, look at that. So if you go to easconsultinggroup.com/training, you can go and look at the different training offerings that EAS offers. They have an amazing selection of training courses. Things that are online or things that you could do in-house. And even if something's there that you're looking for that you don't find, they can create that for you, right? And so EAS is very generous here in providing a discount on those courses. So 15%, and you use my name, Bryan with a Y. I don't think it's case sensitive. You don't have to put all capitals, but BRYAN. So on checkout, if you put that in the promo code, 15% off. Gotta love it.
Yep.
And let's see. So, Raphael, I always love comments from Raphael. How to build a culture takes time.
Yeah, long time.
Bam. Mic drop. Good comment, right? So amazing conversation, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. This motivates us. And I don't know about you, Jose, but when we do these food safety chats for the rest of the day, I'm charged.
You're powerful.
Yeah. And so use that energy, everybody, and go out there, look at what 2.1 management responsibility and review are trying to say.
Yeah.
And then translate that to your company and be able, like a good tour guide, to walk a guest, a visitor, an auditor, a regulator through that and explain why you do what you do and why this is an important piece I'll throw in here too. Why there are things you don't do.
Oh, yes.
Think about that one.
Yeah.
So we're back here next Friday, same time. So January 28th at 8 a.m. Mountain Time for me, 10 a.m. Eastern for Jose, and we'll have a new food safety chat. And so early next week, we'll be looking at the overall content, but I can give you a teaser on that. So this is going to be a good one. It's going to be around facility security, and we have a big expert coming next week on that. So everybody, please join us next week for the chat. As Renee said here, you can watch these in the recording, but being here live, right? It's a lot funner, right? You get to ask your questions and interact and these type of things. So we look forward to seeing everybody here next week, and enjoy your weekends, and we'll see you then. And thank you, Jose. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.